This is the Brewer to Brewer podcast from All About Beer, a conversation that goes beyond the brew house and into topics that matter to brewing professionals and curious beer drinkers. Visit allaboutbeer.com and follow on social media, and to support journalism in the beer space, check out patreon.com/allaboutbeer. I'm Kyle Harrop of Horus Age Dales, and this week I'm glad to be talking with my friend and pally, Evan Price of Green Cheek Beer Company. We'll get into it in just a moment, but first, this message.
First Tea is a proud sponsor of the Brewer to Brewer podcast. They've been working with brewers on a wide range of ingredients and delicious beers. First Tea combines the flexibility of order sizes with the experience you need to create innovative and successful tea beers. They get you the most direct from farm tea selection, so you are working with flavorful and consistent products. You can find more about First Tea's collaborations with brewers and tea ingredients by visiting blog.firsttea.com. That's blog.firsdtea.com.
Here we go. So, I've been drinking your beers since I was in grad school, going back to Taps and Noble. Like, friends were able to talk me into going to Angel games, even though I'm a diehard Dodgers fan and could care less about that Anaheim team. Just to go to Noble and drink all the Showers IPAs and everything West Coast that you did. And fast forward, I don't even know, maybe 6 years later, I ran into you at I think it was the first Festival of Dankness that Modern Times put on. And that was like right before I was really starting to get Horus off the ground even, which was crazy. Yeah, I mean, we were both just kind of doing completely different things than what we're doing now. So fast forward another half decade and Green Cheek is moving right along, and you got 3 locations now, and something I really look forward to visiting my sister. Your Orange location's right down the street.
Yeah.
And heck yeah, Costa Mesa is, right off the 405 when I'm driving back and forth to my parents like I am today. So I guess my first question was, tell me about the new location. And I don't know much about it, and talking with a few of my friends, they had just heard about it. So when did it come about? Where is it, etc.?
Yeah. So we opened up the spot in Sunset Beach, which is this crazy small sector of Huntington Beach. You're getting close to Steel Beach with that location bordering it. And then, we took over this like old drive-through diner type place.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah, so it's a place called Harry's. It's got a downstairs and an upstairs bar now, and it's got a drive-through. It's the only spot in Sunset Beach proper that actually has an ocean view. And
awesome.
It's like it's the fanciest. I mean, it's the fanciest place that we've opened, but like still not fancy by any way of the words. But we're really proud of it. I mean, it's got a kitchen. We're doing our smash burgers and a range of other kind of food items. Got some talented people in there right now making these incredible tacos for Taco Tuesday with these like slow braised birria tacos and these this like really neat fish taco made with this Vietnamese catfish and called basa. And it's just like it's a pretty special location. I bought a couple arcade games to put upstairs for free to play. So we got like Tetris in there and Centipede, which someone came in recently and beat my highest score. So I still got some work to do on beating that high score. But it's a cool spot. I mean, I think it's it's the first time that we've kind of built something like this place hadn't been renovated in 25 years, something like that. And
Okay.
so, I mean, we had a lot of electrical work to do and some plumbing work to do, and kind of fixing up some bars, and yeah, like putting in a draft system for the first time, and a range of these things we've never actually done, because our other two locations were both breweries that we took over. One was
Yeah.
Barley Forge in Costa Mesa, and the other one was Valiant in Orange. And both of those people did a great job setting the place up, and we didn't have to do much other than put some paint on the walls and decorate it. And so this was our longest turnaround time. I think, like, for Orange, when we opened that in 2017, I think that took us 2 or 3, maybe 3 months to open that spot. And then the Costa Mesa spot took I think 3 weeks to open.
Okay.
And then this place, on the other hand, took like 11 or 10 or 11 months
Wow.
from when we got the keys. And so, yeah, but it's a cool spot. You definitely got to check it out.
Most definitely. When I disc golf at Central Park in Huntington again, it sounds like it's pretty close. I usually go to Rip, which is like
Oh
just down the
yeah,
road.
dude. Yeah, Rip's doing a great job, man. Ian is insanely talented. Legit beers for sure.
Heck yeah. Okay, so backtracking a little bit, how did you get into brewing in the first place? Was taps the first brewing job, and did you homebrew much before you jumped into it on a professional level?
Yeah. So I had this, like, revolutionary sort of moment in my own head of I went to Europe and got a beer experience in Belgium and England and Ireland and I did say Belgium, Germany, Belgium. Never mind, you got it all. And so I ended up getting back from this trip, and my buddy that I went with was telling me about homebrewing. He hadn't done it before either, but he's like, drove by a homebrew shop, and it was this spot in Long Beach. I can't remember the name of now, but yeah, I went in there and I bought myself a homebrew kit of an English bitter, and I started homebrewing. That beer was trash, and I dumped it. And then I made a German Hefeweizen. That beer was trash, and I dumped it. And I think it was I feel like my first successful beer as a home brewer was like a porter. And and it says a lot because I wasn't doing any water chemistry at that point or anything like that. And so it works really well with the water profile that we have here. And so anyway, I think that was like finally like this moment of like, all right, this is maybe something I want to do. But I started working at BJ's. I have this butterfly effect moment that I always forget to talk about. That's my favorite part of this story. And I was working at House of Blues at the time in Anaheim here, and I had this customer that had a bad day, and he was really upset that there was no onion on his burger. And so I'm telling him, like, okay, would you like me to go get you some more onion? And he's like, no, I shouldn't have to tell you whether or not I need more onion on my burger. I'm paying $10 for this burger. So then this guy just starts ranting and raving, and he's raising his voice and everything else. And I just start laughing at a certain point because he's being so ridiculous. And he ends up looking at me, and it's just like, what's so funny? Like, what are you laughing about? And I'm like, you're just kind of being a dick.
Yeah.
I got fired, and it was at that moment that I was like, all right, I want to go work at a beer place. So then I got a job at BJ's as a server. I worked my way into this like line cleaning gig where I was, a finished beer specialist. And then from there, I secured an interview for the brewery, got hired into the brewery, and then I just started at the bottom. This was 2006, and so I started homebrewing in 2005, and then in 2006 I got that first job, and yeah, 21, 22, right around there, and yeah, I just washing kegs, cleaning floors, all that kind of thing, and then I worked there for 2 years over the course of like 3 different locations, under a fair amount of different like head brewers and everything. So I really felt like that was a great opportunity. And then from there, I went to Hangar 24 in Redlands.
Wow, I did not know that. Wait a second, what year was that? That would have been like 2008.
Yeah. So let's see,
Wow.
2008 Hangar 24. I was the first hired brewer there, and first employee, and it was a really great opportunity.
So, not to interrupt you, but I don't know if you know, I went to grad school at Redlands and graduated in 07. And
that is priceless.
Trying to remember his name. Was it Ben Cook?
Yeah.
The guy so he helped me for my master's thesis. I did a business plan for a brewery, and he helped me because he came from big beer before.
Yep.
Yeah, that's crazy. Holy moly. All right, because my intro to you would have been Taps, and that would have been your third brewing gig then, right?
Yeah.
After Hangar? Okay.
Yeah.
Crazy. Okay, so you've worked at 5 breweries, counting your own now.
Yes. Yeah. It's been a wild ride of like, just working from the bottom up, yeah, I don't know. It's just so funny. Like in 2006, 6 months into working at BJ's, if I had the opportunity to open up a brewery, I would have done it. And you know what? I would have fallen straight on my face and created a really bad reputation for myself. And instead, through like this learning experience of working at all these breweries, I was able to make mistakes under other people's money and everything else. And so I'm really thankful for no one giving me an opportunity and not having the money to open a brewery that early on.
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, I look back on it too. When I did that business plan, I was planning on opening in like Temecula area, and it would have been the first brewery there at the time, and it could have been wildly successful, or it could have been a dumpster fire. So it's all hindsight. But yeah, that's crazy. I just learned a lot about you, man. That's wild.
Yeah, that was
the Redlands thing's gonna trip me out for a long time. That's too close. I would have ended up leaving. I moved. It would have been late 2007. I moved back to LA from there. So I just missed you.
Yeah. Too cool.
That's funny. All right. So I think for me, when people travel to Southern California, I'm often asked where they should go. And, most of these people know they can't really get my beer anywhere because I don't have a tap room, et cetera, et cetera. So Green Cheek and Monkish, and there's a, Highland Park, depending on where people are going, it's where I always send people. And the thing I've always loved about Green Cheek, it's one of the few places, not only the beer is fantastic, but there's a very large variety of beer. And it's always that way. Like I remember when I went to brew with you, I guess it would have been over 2.5 years ago, because the stout just released that was in barrels for 2.5 years. But at the time, you had like a food or age black lager collab that you did with Resonant Culture. Hey, there it is. And like straightforward pale ale, and then you had hazy IPAs, and those were really like hitting their traction at that point. And it was just cool to see a wide spectrum of beer that first time, and every single time I go back, it hasn't changed. And that's something I've always appreciated, and I think people do too, because I can't even tell you how many times and if I misspeak on the exact one, but I'm pretty sure it's a lavender seltzer. I always hear back like, hey, my wife or my girlfriend, that was like her favorite beverage of our whole trip in California for the week. And it's just awesome that you make these world-class hoppy beers and then have stuff like that. I mean, I've had a lot of conversations with you and like the cellar maker guys and the industry. We've all had to evolve and pivot a little bit and probably make beers that we're not necessarily in love with, but keeping consumers happy is huge in, staying successful. And like, especially now, I mean, things have just gotten crazy these past 6 months to a year, I feel like. And I think for you, that's always been really eye-opening for me. And so that was a long blurb, but where I want to get into now is, are you seeing more people drinking West Coast IPA or hazy IPA at this point in time of your own?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's two different crowds that we cater to. I think our job as brewers is to, make the thing that people want and do our best job at it. If you're a chef and truffles are the big thing, I'm gonna shave some truffles on some pasta and call it a day. Like, I think that you see certain people's ego get in the way a little bit too hard with just forgetting this like really simple thing that, like, you by yourself can't drink 500 gallons of beer. Like, you got, I have these, like, every once in a while a brewer will come up with a beer style that I don't think will sell well, or we've tried before and it doesn't sell well, and I'm I tell them like, hey man, I'd rather just go over to Windsor's homebrew shop and get you a bottle of this beer style and hand it to you. You can drink it, and then we'll move on with this idea, because like you're the only person that's probably going to drink this beer. But as far as West Coast versus hazy, we see so two very different customers for these beers. The draft sales for West Coast IPA definitely are better than they are for hazy, and we've kind of, historically the hazy can sales were the most aggressive for us from day one, and we've kind of continued to see this resurgence of West Coast IPA where we release a West Coast IPA almost every week, with then hazy IPA on the other hand is about every other week. But that sort of range goes much harder, where we go from single hazy IPA, double hazy IPA, triple, and then recently we just released a quadruple. And so it's like we see a really big hit on those first couple days of those hazy can releases, and then it trails off for a moment. And on the other hand, the West Coast IPA clientele is just, I don't know, it's an interesting thing. This regular, just constant rotation of pickup, where you just see this like even keel pickup of just like people wanting to get their West Coast IPA for the week, and so they both still do really well for us, and we put a lot of thought and energy into both. I mean, we just went through some really big changes on our hazy beer program, and I think we're getting the best results we've ever gotten out of those beers, and they're tasting better than they've ever tasted.
Yeah, I had Tempered Bliss and Just One Thing Citra last night, actually. So ironically, when I have cans from you, I feel like my club members, whenever I have bottle pickups, only bring me hazy IPA, even though they know West Coast IPA is my favorite style of beer to drink. I find it fascinating.
They're just fucking with you, man.
Yeah,
It's so good.
But I do enjoy. I think you've absolutely nailed it on both the hazy and the West Coast. So it's interesting. I wouldn't have predicted that the West Coast draft sales were higher, but that's awesome to hear.
Well, one thing to tell you that I think is crazier is one of our you mentioned the lavender lemonade. So we make a hard seltzer lavender lemonade. We put a lot of work into it. I mean, we did a year of trying to make seltzer and dumping batches until we finally could create this very neutral base. It's like, the goal is to make a base that's like vodka and water instead of instead of fart water. And so it's like, some of these sulfur or some of these seltzers are just so aggressive on the like rotten egg hydrogen sulfide sulfur levels. And it's like it's a nutrient deficient fermentation, so I get it, but anyway, we get the lavender from France and we grind all the lavender ourselves and make this ginormous tea. And we're at this point now where we make 60 barrels of lavender lemonade every 4 weeks and we sell all of that ourselves.
Wow, and that's incredible.
It's incredible. For something that has a wonderful shelf life, we've tested oxidation for sensory wise for lavender lemonade and seltzers in general, and just the shelf life of these things is incredible because you don't have the oxidation properties that you do for like you would in malted barley, as and so it's it's in this endless world of things to where we're just continuing to experiment with so many different seltzer things right now.
Awesome.
We have this seltzer that we're finishing here soon that we made with Bottle Logic, and it's been so it's a 100% raw cane sugar fermentation.
Crazy.
And then we barrel aged it for 1.5 years in Barbados rum barrels, and then and it came out of the barrel at 19.2%.
Oh,
and then,
wow!
And then we're blending that with a bunch of grapefruit and cinnamon and what else is in a jet pilot? There's like a dab of vanilla and there's some other spices, but and lime. It's just like this really fun 14% ABV like tiki drink thing that we're making. Because I don't know, the jet pilot is one of my personal favorite tiki drinks.
Yeah, I haven't had many of those. I'm a tiki freak, and I pretty much gravitate towards anything with green chartreuse.
So man, do the chartreuse swizzle. Like, how do you? Yeah. I think it's one of the most perfect tiki drinks out there for sure. Little shaved nutmeg on top.
Absolutely, yeah. We're very lucky. Strongwater and False Idol are probably two of my favorite tiki bars in the world, and they're in our respective counties. So
yeah,
very lucky.
Yeah, that Strongwater is right by my house, man. Oh, they're doing a great job over there.
Yeah, they're rad. We're going to take a short break for this message and then come right back for more of this conversation with Evan Price of Green Cheek Beer Company.
Woo!
First Tee is a proud sponsor of the Brewer to Brewer podcast. They've been working with brewers on a wide range of ingredients and delicious beers. First Tee combines the flexibility of order sizes with the experience you need to create innovative and successful tea beers. They get you the most direct from farm tea selection, so you are working with flavorful and consistent products. You can find more about First Tee's collaborations with brewers and tea ingredients by visiting blog.firsttee.com. That's blog.firstea.com.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, Evan.
Hey, thank you.
I think we're bouncing around a lot, but I did want to go kind of back to the IPA front and talk hop selection and how heavily involved you are. And, I've been wanting to go to New Zealand for years now. I'm tentatively planning to finally go in 2024. Have you been up to Yakima? Have you been out there? What have your experiences been if you've had, and do you recommend either or both?
Yeah. I'm with you as well. I haven't been to New Zealand yet. I'm planning on going here in 2023 for that experience. I had a flight booked in 2020. I literally no bullshit. I booked this flight, and no more than 24 hours later, it got canceled, and it was so early in the pandemic that their reimbursements weren't the same as they learned that they had to do. But anyway, so I haven't done New Zealand yet. I'm really excited to jump into that. I mean, we are avid Freestyle Farms supporters, and we get all of our New Zealand hops from them. For the most part, we've done a couple small, lots here and there through Crosby and some other people. But our relationship with Freestyle Farms is fantastic. With their Nelson and their Motueka are phenomenal. So I've been up to Yakima a number of times. I've done the hop selection thing in Yakima. I love getting up there, and I think the biggest thing for all the brewers out there that are trying to get in this camp is those relationships that you can establish with these hop farmers. I think are the thing you're potentially after the most. Sending them some beer, having conversation with them, and they want to talk to you as much as you want to talk to them, because they want to know what you're excited about. Is citrus still the thing that you and your customer base are after, and all these other little aspects from there. You want the late pick, you want the early pick, and you can kind of continue to go on from there. I'm on the fence with in Yakima hop selection with whole flower hops, where I'm so the way that you're presented, one of these say brewer's cuts or sample cuts is you get a small block of whole leaf hops, and you take your hands and you rub them and you smell them, and you go on to the next lot without washing your hands, and you rub that lot, and so now you have two lots of hops on your hands, and what do you know, that one probably smells better because it's a little more complex, there's a little bit more to it. And so you do this and so on and so forth, and I'm not the biggest fan of what that is. Instead, I'm a pellet selector, which kind of goes against the norm, I think, for a lot of people, where I love getting the final product that I'm going to use. We use T90 pellets for the most part. We also use cryo, but I want to smell those things as the final product, because I feel like I've been hosed on selection in the past. I mean, one is just being a noob with the whole thing on those first couple experiences of just not really quite sure, how this translation is going to take place, because it's hard. It's such a hard process for a hard situation for everybody involved, for the rep, for the brewer, for the hop farmer. The goal is to try to pretend to figure out how these hops that you're smelling in your hand are going to translate into the final product of the beer. And just like with so many rubs that I've had in the past with different hop varietals, it's not until you finally get it into the beer you can really see what it's able to do. And so yeah, I end up just being in this camp of, can you just send me pellets of different lots and then I can pick from there, and that ends up being my favorite way to select. And then the second favorite is just talking to friends. And you know um early on at Green Cheek, when we didn't have the time or the or the, I don't know, the ability to select,
Mm-hmm.
I would do selection through selection, which was I would talk to, say, 3 or 4 friends and be like, hey, can I buy a box of Citra from you? And then I would get all of these Citras in, and then I would smell all of them, and then I would decide, and then I would like call up whoever the winner was in my head and be like, hey, can I buy can I buy more of this? And then that was the way to like get it going, because you talk to people like Tim and Connor from Cellar Maker, and they're quite possibly my favorite people to talk hops with, because
Absolutely.
they geek out at a level that is so entertaining, where it's just like Connor and Tim will start talking back and forth, and they'll be like, oh man, yeah, that's pretty good, but what about lot 554466 from 2019, Coleman Farms, Mosaic. Like, they'll go through this whole thing, and then they'll be like, just I don't know. It's just memorizing the exact lot number is at a level that I haven't quite gotten to, but yeah. More, I can usually just name the farm of where we got the hops.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Cellar Maker, because I was making IPAs for a while, and I'm finally going to get back into doing it again soon. And instead of getting contracts, they're good friends of mine, and I basically bought all the hops I needed from them.
Perfect.
And that might not seem like that big of a deal to people on the outside, but in my opinion, they have some of the best hops.
Oh yeah.
Because they just go down into the nittiest, grittiest detail. And I remember probably 6-7 years ago smelling some with Tim, and he's like throwing out like mixed berry Skittles and cantaloupe
Yes.
rind and like some stuff, and I'm just like, man, I either need to have a few beers to like open up my mind, or this guy's on another level. And hanging out with him, since then, he's just on another level. And I know, like, one of my coolest collab experiences was going up there to brew a West Coast IPA with them, and just going in the cold box and literally opening up bags of T90 pellets and smelling them, and
yes,
choosing what went into the beer at that moment in time. Like, there was no plan until right then and there, and that was awesome.
Yeah,
and
that's
I can't remember. Yeah, it's really cool. And I think you were either there the week before me or the week after, but we both ended up doing IPAs with them that I think mine had 7 hops and yours might have had 8 or 6. I forget, but it's just funny. Like, that's how cool of like a hop catalog they have. It's like you can't decide, and stuff's just awesome. So you end up throwing the kitchen sink in it.
Yeah, it's such a good time. I love that, like, that ability when we're at that level, as far as size. Cellar Makers are that level as far as size. When you're collaborating with a brewery where you have the like ability to just like off the cuff be like, all right, cool, let's smell some hops and figure out what we're throwing in this thing.
Yep.
There's other collaborations you do where, man, they want that info months ahead of time. You're halfway across the world, and it's like, well, I mean, I don't know what your Simcoe smells like. I don't know what this other thing smells like. And I think it's like that ends up being like just so much more difficult.
Absolutely. And I think like it's that plays off what I get asked a lot. And like when I brew big stouts a lot on collabs, and it's like for most breweries, they're ordering that grain well in advance because that's not the kind of grain they have just lying around the brewery.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like having, Pilsner malt, Maris Otter and these things, like the experience we just described at Cellar Maker doesn't happen that often. And it's really only happened to me one other time, I think was at Forest and Maine in Pennsylvania. And it's just a much different, like authentic experience that way. And I don't think I'll ever get to the point where that's doable on like a stout. Maybe like if they have pretty much a BSG warehouse down the street.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot of planning and a lot of just like orders prior to getting there. So I think, yeah, our experiences at Cellar Maker are pretty unique, and that's really cool. We're both lucky to have had them.
Yes, I love it.
All right. So another thing that's always fascinated me about you is you're always happy. I've never seen you bummed out. Your kids could be giving you a hard time. You're still stoked. And, that really shines through to a lot of people. I've had multiple people come up to me and be like, hey, I met Evan at JBF. And that's, I've never been there, but the way I picture it is just thousands of people and probably super overwhelming. But if you're
crazy.
making an impression on somebody at something like that, then yeah, you're just a good, happy dude. And I think that goes a long ways. And I think from a JBF standpoint, you've judged it multiple times, right?
Yeah, five years. I don't. I think I'm 5 years in. This was the first year that I was like a table captain, which was an absolute honor. But yeah, I've been doing that for a little bit now, which has been just an absolute honor.
That's awesome. So when you've done it, are you doing the same style each year, or is it completely random and mixed bag, or how does it all work?
Yeah, so you get a list of all of the beer styles that are at the competition.
Okay.
And then you rate things on how well you either know or like each beer style. And you cut out any of the ones that you're entering yourself. If you miss it, it's they know what you enter too, so they definitely will correct your card. But so then I end up in the spot for the most part where I end up just going for all the lighter or lower ABV beers because one, I'm a lightweight, Kyle, to say the least. There was this last year at World Beer Cup, I was thrown into it last minute, and I ended up not filling out one of those judge sheets. So all I was judging was like bourbon barrel aged stouts and and oh my God, I remember looking at I was judging with Ben from Breakside a lot, and I just when we were over one day, I was just like, dude, I need food. I need I need to hydrate. Like this was an intense session. It's but normally normally you're not getting intoxicated, but it's because you're drinking and trying such a small amount over this stretched out period. But it's such a neat experience to kind of see things behind the curtain. You're given a flight of beers with each one of these categories. You're typically judging with anywhere from 2 to 5 other people, and you're then you're given anywhere from 6 to 10 beers, sometimes 12 in one flight. The first 45 or so minutes of that flight is you personally going through and judging each one of these beers completely on your own. So for all the brewers out there that end up seeing like, hey, judge number one said this, but then judge number two said this. It's all because of this part of the competition that GABF or the Brewers Association also values, which is, we all do taste differently, and that's
Yeah.
okay. And so then what ends up happening though is after these judge sheets are filled out, then the conversation starts, and so you have this like near pin drop quiet room for 45 or so minutes with all these other judges, and then all of a sudden, conversation opens up and you start talking about it, and it's just like, all right, what do you think about 424? And it's like, well, wasn't my favorite beer on the table for these reasons, or you know what, I really like that beer, it's in my top 3, or you kind of like just start these conversations, and it is just so interesting the amount of times that I've done this and gone through this, and I feel like I learn so much every time on how to articulate what I'm tasting and how I'm tasting, and becoming more and more comfortable in a short period of time on just like, okay, that is, this off flavor, that is this palate, and and you end up just kind of like being able to dial that in. But it is absolutely something that you can, in my opinion, you can only do through experience. Just continue to do it.
Yeah, I've always wondered if it's like hard to, like, if you get fatigued, you're at elevation. So I'm like, wow, how many beers do these guys have to taste? It's even like tasting barrels, like I feel it, even if I spit it out, like, so that's cool. I've always been curious about it.
I'm in the camp that outside of say, severe intoxication or whatever, palate fatigue doesn't exist. I think that, it's all there, in regards to our receptors and everything. And so it's like, they're there to experience what's around it. You taste something, the order at which you taste, I think ends up being maybe the most important sometimes. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I think like lager and pale ale, like, sign me up. But what you were saying with the stouts, like, you have that many barrel aged samples in a string, and they start getting pretty convoluted pretty quick, or you just get overwhelmed. I don't know. One of the two.
Yeah, seriously.
What do you think, like, the future of GABF? Do you think that new styles are going to pop in? Or are we going to see things like Munich wine that Brad Clark's making, or like a pastry stout category? Or do you think it's going to stay kind of old school, quote unquote?
I think that they're always, going to be a couple years behind, just because of how, it's a big ship. Steering that big ship takes a lot of movement, or a lot of work, right? And so, just like a large production brewery where they've got their production calendar filled out for 2023 or more already, and I don't know what I'm brewing next week. I think that the Brewers Association ends up being in a similar spot. I couldn't believe the day that a golden stout or a golden coffee beer was on on for the guidelines. When I was at Noble, we made a beer called Naughty Sauce, and that was like, the first of that kind that I know of then. and
Yeah.
to see that, like, that they do evolve. It just, yeah, I think takes them a little bit more time. And so, I won't be surprised at all if seltzer's on there sometime soon, because enough people are making it. I'm not going to be surprised for sure if, talking about like Munich wine and, some of these, like one of your 100% caramel beers, or
Yeah.
um, other of these sort of things, very, very decadent stout or something like that, because, I think that that Horus palette, and that style that you do is definitely something that, obviously people want, consumers want, like, and I think that it ends up coming down to entries. You kind of see
Yeah.
categories continue to diminish, and then once they get small enough, they become a subcategory and they get grouped in with another category, where, man, I can't remember right now what styles, but like, you know, it'll be a category on its own, and then all of a sudden it'll be into historical beer or something like that. And so
Yeah.
they change the guidelines every year, and adding and subtracting and whatever else. But
Okay.
I
So we
don't think,
can.
but I do think that we will see evolution, and we will constantly see evolution within those styles.
That's cool. So we can expect to see your barrel aged seltzer in a few years. It's cool because you and American Solera are the only two I've heard doing it. But I mean, I was going to ask you before you even started talking about it. So that's awesome.
I mean,
fact-
dude, the seltzer thing is so nuts. I mean, like, we just made a 22% ABV through fermentation. Just through fermentation, we made a 22% ABV seltzer. We're So we just filtered that, and which goes through normal, like, DE filter pads, but then like a metric shit ton of charcoal filter pads too, is part of the
Yeah.
secret to those things. And we ended up with this, like super, super neutral base. We're going to turn it into a limoncello and
Awesome.
serve just like boss pours, like of limoncello, like large ice cube in an old fashioned glass, like 5 ounces of this, like, hopeful 18 to 20% ABV, just limoncello. And
That's awesome.
it's just like, I mean, another seltzer we just did is we just released this sangria, where so we've been making wine, and for the last since 2020 was the first year that I started this little side project for us. And we made a Merlot this year, and after the free run of the Merlot juice, we fermented a seltzer on top of all these skins, these Merlot skins. And so we got this beautiful, like, um, seltzer base that kind of drinks like a Lambrusco or something like that. And well, a dry Lambrusco. I'm thinking more of that, like, fresh fruit sort of like character. And then I had this Sangiovese from 2020 that I felt like was too oaky on its own to release, and so I blended in some of that to help fill it out and give it some richness. Gave it some
Cool.
cinnamon syrup and some blood oranges, and now we have this, like, I don't know, seltzer wine hybrid thing of sangria that's now on tap.
Very cool. I need to get down and try it, or up, I should say.
Yeah, dude.
All right. So last question. Feel like I'm asked it weekly is how are you looking at festivals in the future? Are you planning on participating in as many as you did in the past? And do you think they're as important for craft breweries nowadays?
It's a great question, man. we have these same conversations internally, and I'm not, like most things, I don't have the answers. But
Yeah.
but like, I we've brought down the amount of festivals that we've done, whether it's a brewery's actions that we don't agree with, or if it's just overload of cool things happening and we just can't tack on another one. It's yeah, it's kind of like a you can only do so much, and I end up being a little bit for sure over the top on, you know, biting off more than I can chew.
Hmm.
In the beginning days of Green Cheek, I mean, I was, trying to build a brand. I'm traveling as much as I can, and really trying to get out there. And our brand is, Green Cheek as much as possible. And so we are slimming. I think we've slimmed down on festivals, but I think we're just in the spot now where we still are excited to do them, and we still want to do them. It's just Brian and myself don't always get to go, or don't always go, because we just have too much going on. And but then when someone from our staff is able to go to this festival, that's some of the, man, like, Kyle, we get invited, like, we're in this this insanely fortunate spot, you and I, of like going to the world's best festivals, and it's like,
Yep.
yeah, I don't know, it's pretty mind-blowing to, like, yeah, be involved in those types of things.
For sure. And I think personally, like, I need to cut back because I went so hard for so many years, like on that festival circuit. And, summer finally coming back around for the first time in years. Like, I threw mine 4 years ago, even. Like, I haven't thrown one since. So that might be something I revisit. But I'm looking forward to going to new ones and not necessarily tacking on a couple of months like I used to. I think for both of us, our brands, we're not going to sell beer in Japan or Europe, a lot of the time. So it probably doesn't make sense to go to those festivals every year and take a week out of spending time with our families and go
Yeah.
from there. But I do think COVID has changed festivals a lot, from the ones I've been to since we kind of got back into it. And it's a whole new dynamic in itself. So,
I mean, like, you and I are in similar camps where we both have kids,
yep.
and we're trying to juggle these different things. I mean, like, your situation is so interesting. You have a full-time job. Like, when you say full-time job, like, is that you going into the office Monday through Friday, and then on the side, you're just like, at the end of every day, you're like, all right, honey, yep, going by the brewery. I'll see you tomorrow morning for pancakes, and then yeah, it's back to work, and back to the other job again. Like, what do you like? How do you juggle all this?
It was like that, up until February of 2020. I walked away from Northrop Grumman. I was there for 14 years, and basically our second kid was going to be born, and I knew I couldn't do it anymore on that scale. So it is way more beer focused now, and I don't think Horus could exist if it wasn't, because still doing everything solo pretty much, and I'm at every bottle pickup, and that face-to-face time is important for my little niche, because
Yeah.
I basically have that little wine bottle club type business program still. So yeah, man, it's hard. I know, just like kids and in this industry alone, it's a hard juggle. So having the other career in there wasn't gonna last long. But
It's
yeah,
crazy.
man,
Do you see yourself going like full time with Horus at one point, or like
yeah,
what's your plan on that?
I think, like, once my son is a little older, opening a tap room somewhere and selling lager and IPA over the counter and actually making money. Not relying on beer that sits in barrels for upwards of 4 years. And it's not an easy business model to thrive in, especially like in Southern California where things are just getting outrageously expensive, I feel like, every year. So
oh my goodness.
I do definitely want to at some point. I've been saying it for years, but I think I'm getting closer. It's just going to be that lifestyle choice.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That'd be a big day for sure.
Yeah, and I think like both of our brands, we're very bird centric, and out of most breweries, I think like our aesthetics are probably most identifiable. I mean, you have a very particular art with Green Cheek, and I use an artist, Spring Whitaker, out of New Jersey, who's very identifiable. So I think opening that tap room and like having that imagery already kind of set for these past 8 years will be cool too.
Totally. Yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah, thank you very much, Evan. That is everything I had. It was awesome talking to you. I know I don't get to see you as much as I used to because we're busy, but
that's how it goes, right? Man, growing up sucks.
It does.
Like,
and
the moment, like, I mean, it's just funny, like, you're on top of the world, and then you have kids, and then it's like, whoa, okay, I don't know. Somebody should have warned me about this. I feel like I got warned, but like, man, juggling as much as we do, and then having kids too, I think it just ends up being like a pretty like hectic, crazy life.
Absolutely. It's someone should have warned you. You're going to have to hit a reset button because it is a whole new world once that happens. And for me, I know you had two kind of at the same time, and mine were 4 years apart, and I'm sure it was hard having the twins, but man, that 4 year gap and like just being 4 years older was like, holy crap, what did I do to myself?
Oh man, yeah. Like my wife and I, like we did we had both of the, we had our twin boys, and then every time that they were done with something, we could just get rid of it. It's like, all right, cool, they're done with diapers. Wonderful. Let's get rid of all that stuff. And then it's like, okay, cool, they're walking down. It's like, we talk to friends that have that age gap, and what is it with our minds? We end up forgetting some of the most difficult parts of like, certain things. I was reading an article about this where it's just like, we end up looking back in, at our memories with more fondness and nostalgia than what actually say took place. And so, you forget that it's as much work as it is, and then you're going through number 2 and you're just like, oh my goodness, this kid is so much work. So anyway, yeah, dude, great to be on the show. I love talking to you today, man. Thanks for having me. Been a crazy ride.
Yeah, thank you, dude. I look forward to getting to the Sunset Beach location and finally trying our double barrel stout.
Oh, dude. Okay, so by the way, I have it right here. You get bottle number 1 of 1,000.
Oh, heck
yeah. See if you can see that number on there. I got it right there. And the guy who does our shipping is just out this week, so you'll be getting a package next week.
Oh, amazing! I do need to come see you regardless, but I appreciate it, Senor.
Yeah.
All right, listeners. Evan will be back on the next episode of this show as the host, and he will be having a conversation with a brewer of his choosing. That will be on the air in 2 weeks, so make sure you make sure you tune in for that. Visit allaboutbeer.com and follow on social media. And to support journalism in the beer space, check out patreon.com/allaboutbeer. I'm Kyle Harrop of Horus Age Sales. Thank you for listening to the Brewer to Brewer podcast.
This episode was brought to you by First Tea. First Tea delivers the ingredients and experience brewers need for delicious beers and innovative flavors. Flexible order sizes and direct from farm teas for your next brew. Find out more about First Tea by visiting blog.firsttea.com. That's blog.firsdtea.com.